Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Admiral, good to see you again. Congratulations on your nomination. I appreciated our discussion last week. I want to begin with kind of a big picture discussion about the Navy, and there's been a lot of press recently. Here's the New York Times from last week. Faced with evolving threats, the U.S. Navy continues to struggle to change. Here's from the National Review 2 weeks ago. Sea change, rebuilding the Navy for the Pacific. And then you and I talked about this very good 60 Minutes piece. Nora O'Donnell led that. At the end of that, or during that interview, it was very long, about 40 minutes on 60 Minutes, she asked the CNO, is the Navy in crisis? Shrinking the Navy when the Chinese Navy is increasing dramatically. In my view, priorities mixed up. We got the climate change strategy 18 months ago and the 30-year shipbuilding strategy at midnight before the CNO's SECNAV's posture hearing, which is complete backwards priorities. Is the Navy in crisis? I think it is. A lot of people think it is. What's your view? And if you think it's not, what do you see as the biggest challenge and how do we address it?
Senator Sullivan, thank you again for the opportunity to meet with you last week. I enjoyed our conversation. The Navy is not in crisis. We are the most formidable Navy in the world, working together with our Marine Corps team.
We're shrinking.
We deliver options
shrinking our surface fleet pretty dramatically. Is that a problem?
The Navy is not about a number of ships. The Navy is about capability, and that comes from many things. It comes from the number of ships we have. It has to do with the capabilities each individual ship has and how they knit together as a warfighting ecosystem along with our joint partners and allied partners. We need to have the munitions, we need to have the people, and I'm confident that our Navy, if called today, would fight and win against any adversary.
So to my question on biggest challenge, biggest problem, and how you would fix it, if confirmed, what is that?
The biggest challenge right now is getting more players on the field. I think that's a three-part problem.
Is that what you mean? So don't shrink the Navy?
So
what do you mean by more players on the field?
We have a lot of ships that are tied up in maintenance right now.
Okay.
And we need to continue. We're moving in the right direction, but I'm not satisfied with that. And if confirmed, I will continue our efforts to make sure that we get our ships in and out of maintenance on time so they can join the fleet and be ready to fight and win.
Well, one thing that I think has been problematic with the Navy is the responsiveness to this committee and our oversight role. Some of us, myself included, take this very seriously. I just received from the CNO and the SECNAV just a couple weeks ago the questions for the record that I asked them in April at their posture hearing. So it took a half a year for them to get back to me, and the answers weren't even responsive. I had asked Secretary Del Toro, I know you were asked it today, I'd like you to answer it. Congress has given you multi-ship procurement authorities over the past 3 NDAAs, but you've never used it for amphibs. Why won't you use it? That was a question, and the answer was a cut and paste from another answer. Didn't even answer it. And it took a half year to get that. It's ridiculous. So can I get your commitment, if confirmed, that you can step up the Navy's game to make sure when we are doing oversight, which the Navy needs, that you're actually responsive? Because right now I think you've been failing on that.
Senator, you have my commitment to respond to all the requests from the committee in a timely manner.
Not a half year? Is that timely, a half year?
That is not an acceptable amount of time.
Thank you. And to the question of using your multi-year procurement authorities, what of that? You haven't used them yet.
Senator, if confirmed, and I will get back to you on that, I want to take a little bit more time to really understand and study that.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Chairman, I'm almost out of time here. I'm going to ask one more question, and then I might stay for a second round if that's okay. Admiral, you and I had an extensive discussion, and again, to me, this is just an unacceptable lack of following the law by the leadership of the Navy on the issue of 31 amphibs. This committee held many hearings on it, worked with the Navy, worked with the Marine Corps, and put into law last year this, which is now the law. The Navy Naval combat forces of the Navy shall include not less than 11 operational aircraft carriers and not less than 31 operational amphibious warships, of which not less than 10 shall be amphibious assault ships. That's the law. It was unanimous, by the way, in this committee. And when the Secretary of the Navy brought us his 30-year shipbuilding plan at midnight before his hearing in April, in 30 years, the Navy never hits 31 amphibs. Kind of shocking to me. Are you going to hit 31 amphibs according to the law? And let me ask another question. Does the Navy or OSD, or heck, even the President for that matter, have the discretion after reading the law and looking at Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution, which gives the Congress the power to provide and maintain a Navy? Are you going to hit that number? I mean, you don't have an option.
Senator, our amphibious forces are a critical part of the naval force, and I am very committed to working with the Marine Corps. And General Smith he defines the requirement for the force.
No, we defined it.
As he,
Chairman, it is a really important issue.
As he communicates the need for the size of the force that he needs. We have 31 amphibs today, and if confirmed, I'm committed because we have a validated need for 31 amphibs in addition to it being a law. So if confirmed, I will continue to work with the Commandant and with the Secretary to ensure that we meet the requirements of 31 amphibs.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Admiral, you and I had the opportunity to talk about force design and Marine Corps force design, and it's a bold initiative by the Marine Corps. It's not without its own controversy, but a big component of that is its focus on joint expeditionary ops with the Navy. And one of my issues with the previous CNO is that seemed a bit of a one-way street. The Marine Corps' focus is a lot on working really, really closely with the Navy, but in a lot of the Navy's strategy documents, it doesn't seem to be that reciprocated. My own view is if the Navy's not fully on board with Marine Corps force design, stand-in force combat concepts, that will fail. More specifically, the landing ship mediums are essential to the Marine littoral regiments operating as stand-in forces and conducting expeditionary advanced base operations. The 2024 budget includes just 6 LSMs being ordered over the next 5 years, which wouldn't even support one Marine littoral regiment, let alone the 3 that are planned in force design. How will you advocate for resources more effectively than your predecessor to ensure production of LSMs in support of the Marine Corps force design?
Senator Sullivan, as we discussed, I'm very supportive of Force Design 2030, and I'm very committed to working with General Smith as they continue to iterate on that very important concept. I think one of the challenges is with our strategy documents is that Force Design came out at the same time we were generating a lot of our strategy documents that you may have seen.
Yeah.
But as we look forward in our own Force Design document, the Marine Corps and Force Design is totally integrated into that, and I'm fully committed to supporting the Marine Corps as they evolve in this chain. As far as the landing ship mediums, we have working with the Marine Corps to set a requirement for 18 initially.
Okay.
So again, we can get those ships out, iterate on the concept, and make sure that it's what they need before we move forward. And I'm committed to working with the Commandant to do that.
So the 18 that's obviously up from the 6 that was in the FY24 budget?
No, the 18 total to make sure that we have the requirements right before we move on to their follow-on goal, which is about 35, if I have that correct.
Okay. Let me ask one final question to the chairman's keeping on time with my 2 questions. This one is, we discussed it, and to be honest, I've not asked a question in a hearing on it, but to be honest, when I first looked just this morning at the CNO's, previous CNO's reading list, and there was a lot of controversy on one book in particular, How to Be an Anti-Racist. But actually, when I looked at it, I was kind of shocked to see almost half the reading on that CNO's reading list under the topic of sailors, which there are several different topics, is on racial politics. So how to be an anti-racist, that's one. Why we can't talk about that at work, how to talk about race, religion, politics, and other polarizing topics, that's another. Sexual minorities and politics, the new Jim Crow, mass incarceration in the age of colorblindness. You know, I have no problem with sailors reading these kind of books on their free time, but as you know, the Commandant or the CNO's reading list is something that's quite serious, and in my experience with service reading lists, it usually relates to lethality, warfighting, the history of the Navy, biographies, heritage. There are thousands of books like that sailors could learn from. I have a theory on why these kind of books got on the reading list, and I'm going to ask it. I have time, Mr. Chairman. This is an important question, actually. Probably had some, campaign operative for the Biden administration, get a job in the Pentagon, took a class on national security in college, and now he thinks he's going to tell the Navy what's good for them, right? How do you think these kind of things got on the reading list? And can you commit to me, if confirmed, for your reading list to focus traditionally on what most reading lists, almost all reading lists, history, culture, war fighting, naval history? Like I said, you and I talked about a bunch of really good books. I don't know why there's so much focus on race. You can read it on their off time, but it seems to me a real missed opportunity when the Navy's probably the most, deep culture, heritage, great history, that sailors should learn about that before reading all this stuff, in my view. What's your view? And can you commit to me to get back to what should be on normal reading lists for sailors or Marines?
Senator Sullivan, again, thank you for the book. And, as I told you in the office call, I'm very focused on war fighting, war fighters, and winning. I don't know the process by which books are on the CNO's reading list, but if confirmed, I will develop a process and I will focus on war fighting, war fighters, and winning.
Thank you. I mean, it's your reading list, right? So you can put whatever, my respectful advice, you get some, far left civilian who somehow found a job at the Pentagon, never served in the military. I guarantee you that's what happened here. Pushing this agenda, I would politely tell them to pound sand, and that you're going to focus on warfighting, heritage, and lethality. And I think that's a safe place for you to be, and I think it's the place most Americans want the CNO of the Navy to be on the CNO's reading list. Thank you.